So I might entirely regret this, but I bought a $50 DC reel. Sounds too good to be true, right? My viewers told me I had to try this brand, so I picked up what might be the cheapest DC reel on the market, the Sear DC Cast. Want to do 14 pound, I think, and just throw a spinnerbait because I feel like a spinnerbait is a nice middle ground. So I'll give you guys an overview of if this knockoff DC reel is actually worth 50 bucks. Like, that shouldn't do that. Look at that, $50 reel. Is that fish worth $50? I don't know if these fish are gonna be biting, but we're gonna at least give this reel a try. So I'm gonna start this at 8 on the DC. I'm actually gonna crank it up a little bit. Let's do a light cast there. Oh, it does make the DC sound. If that's important to you, you'll be right at home with this one. So I wanted to backlash a little bit there. We're on 8 right now. Let's try a long cast. Oh yeah, definitely wanted to backlash a little bit there. I think it's more sensitive on the initial cast. So like a lot of times when you get backlash, like as soon as you cast, it's the break. I'm actually really impressed how smooth this reel is. I didn't necessarily think smoothness would be that great. So first thoughts on this reel, it's okay. It's okay. It was actually really hard to kind of get it dialed in. I have to have the brake pretty heavy on it, and I have the side plate, I have it on 1 out of 10. So it's at max braking, but I will say it could be the rod. So we're gonna keep fishing, hopefully we can catch some fish on it and really test out some of the tolerances of it. There we go. That feels a little bit better. So we're at a new place today, trying it with a big bait this time, and we're gonna see if we can catch some lake largemouth and really put this bad boy to the test because they should be feisty here in early April. I changed it up a little bit. I actually put this on a nicer rod to try out. This is true brink angling right here. Just toss that right there. There we go. That little guy. I think that might have been the one we saw. So 5-inch swag, 12-inch bass. He might be more than 12, but not by much. That was our first fish on it here. And I'm actually throwing it on a little bit of a heavier setup. And it's doing pretty good, honestly. I wanted to test kind of the upper ends of it. There we go. A little bit better. All right, the DC cast is really nice for just kind of pitching this. This is just a 5-inch swag. I got that with the top hook because we're fishing around some weeds, but so not a bad one. A little bit better than that last one. Threading the needle here. There we go. A little bit better one. Yeah. Look at that. $50 reel. Is that fish worth $50? A little bit of a better one on the 5-inch swag. Sometimes it's fun just to go pond hopping for bass. So, get that male back in. Go spawn, bud. Every fish I've caught's been a male tucked up against the bank. The way he hit that, I thought he was actually going to be a bigger one, but... Gave him a second to run with it. That's what I love about the top hook on the swag. is you always get them right in the roof of the mouth. So consistency is why I like the top hook for open water. Dude, this looks awesome actually. I'm gonna try this backside. That was a little one that just hit it. A lot of these little guys are just nipping at it. There we go. That feels a little bit better. Yeah, that's what we're after. Yeah, that's a little bit better. All right, right in the roof of the mouth. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, I'll take another that size. Dude, there's gotta be more. There we go. Same spot. Same spot. Oh, pre-spawn, pre-spawn, pre-spawn. You're so predictable. Oh, right in the top of the mouth. I guess that kind of was the side and the top, but like that shouldn't do that. That's on max break everything. Like I can't break it anymore and it's still backlashing. Serviceable, but it's inconsistent is the way I would describe it. Are you kidding me? Well, that's a first. The line is actually wrapped around the spool within the reel. So I don't actually know how I'm going to salvage this. I guess I'm just going to reel it up and this rod is done. That's a first for me. The line is actually caught inside the spool somehow, so I actually need to take the side plate off. I had to reel in my line because it was all out there. So should you buy the Sear DC cast for 50 bucks? My first impressions of this reel were that it was just gonna be another little junky knockoff style reel. I've heard pretty good things about this brand, but my expectations were fairly low. I thought that it was probably too good to be true that a DC reel that was under $100 was gonna be any good. I think the short answer is this reel surprised me in a couple different ways, but it wasn't without its problems, which we're gonna dive into a little bit here. So out of the box, I was honestly a little concerned about the actual braking mechanism. I thought that perhaps maybe it wasn't gonna be that good. And my on the water experiences with this reel kind of reinforced that a little bit. Now I will say this, if you're wanting that sound, it's there. It's there. And it actually does it when you turn the handle too, so which is a little different from the Shimano reels, which seem to only do it when it's engaged and going. It's also got lights on the side that light up as it goes, which I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't really see the purpose of the lights, but they're there. The issue with the casting mechanism, this is just my experience with the reel. And you saw it on my first trip out to that little muddy river. It doesn't really feel like it has a purpose, but it works. And hear me out on this. This is a really weird reel in that respect. I felt like I constantly had to have it cranked down to like max. And what I mean by that is I have it on 10. I typically had the brake super tight, and that was the only way I could really get it to consistently cast. But it wasn't bad. It was still casting them super far configured like that. So although you have to go on 10, or at least in my experiences I did, and I had to have the brake really tight, it seemed to work really well. It really casted them well. Now it did hurt it kind of in the short term, which I would have to adjust this, the actual tension knob. You had to kind of adjust it on the fly to get those little short pitches of that. Now, I think it did a little bit better with the heavier baits than it did with, like, I tried a light spinner bait, a middle spinnerbait, a heavy thing, and I actually even tried to throw light lures on it. I'm talking like a 1/4 ounce type thing. I actually started with 8-pound line on this, and I put it on a medium light rod, that BFS arc rod that I've talked about a little bit. I had it on there and I was trying to throw small crankbaits with it, and it was not working. It just didn't want to handle it. So when it came to really light stuff, I've never really liked DC reels for that, but this one was not able to kind of do that. But having this cranked down so much, it just kind of frustrated me because it almost made it feel like there was no point in having the other modes, and having to have it so tight, it's just like, well, at that point, why even have a DC reel? Because there was the chance of backlash still, especially in windy conditions. That being said, I would say it was fairly consistent otherwise, and I enjoyed using it. It was a pretty solid reel. I mean, it feels good in hand. The build quality for 50 to 60 bucks, depending on what the price is, it varies a little bit, was really strong. I had my concerns about the handles at first, but honestly, I like the handle. The clicking drag, nice feature. Clicking brake, nice feature. It's crazy that we have to consider those like premium features, but that's just the nature of casting reels. The frame is not aluminum. It is like a composite type frame. Felt pretty good. It actually reminded me of the old Corrado 200E style frames. Like it felt very similar in hand. I got one laying around here somewhere, but the build quality on it was really good. The spool was light. I actually think I weighed it and it was comparable to a Shimano spool. That being said, as you guys probably saw as we ended the video, we actually had one of the strangest things that have ever happened with a reel happen with this one. So let's talk about that. So the side plate removal is probably the worst build feature on this. It's this little bitty plastic thing here that is a pain in the butt to get on and off. I'll back up a little here. It is a pain in the butt to get on and off. Somehow, the line actually got between, there's like a gap there. You can see the light coming through. So that gap is a problem because the way this is designed, this plastic ring actually keeps line from going through there. So if at any point it gets a little off center, line can get in there and wrap around the spool, which you saw. I have seen it happen with like really light lines, but I was using 14-pound fluorocarbon and it still was able to kind of work its way in there. And that's just like lack of R&D. So that it did cause me to sort of have to stop using the reel for the day, which frustrated me. And the only reason that happens, and this is the only thing I can say bad about it besides the tension knob stuff we talked about, is because this right here, this little mechanism is really not very flush. So as you put that back in there, you have to pull it really tight. It actually did it a lot easier there. And I think that that is kind of just because of this. If you don't get this super tight on there, because you can actually put it on there a little bit loose. If you don't get that super tight, you got like a really small gap where it can get in there. So a minor strike against it. And I honestly think that it's not really that big of a deal. It seemed like it was kind of a freak accident, but I mean, it's worth pointing out because if you're using smaller diameter line, that is a bigger problem than what I was doing with 14-pound fluoro. So besides that, I would say overall, it is a super serviceable reel and it might be the most surprising budget reel I've ever bought. I've used a lot of cheapo reels. I've got a whole stack of them over there and they all pretty much felt the same. This one, for whatever reason, felt like it could have been, you could have slapped any name brand on it and you probably would be, more people would be talking about it. So although I think that I need to spend a little bit more time sort of playing with the brakes and figuring out what the pros and cons of it are, I was really impressed with this reel. And I think if you could get this reel under $70, because like I mentioned, the price fluctuates between $50 to $70. I got it for $52. I think this is a really serviceable reel if you just want something cheap. Is it better than a Shimano DC? No. That being said, it wasn't backlashing that much outside the couple handful of times which I showed you in the video, and it was kind of tough to dial in. But overall, if you're looking for something that is cheap, looks kind of cool, I actually like the styling on it, this might be a reel for you because it's really hard to find budget reels in today's fishing economy. And I think this one surprised me more than I expected it to. So the Seaser DC Cast for me is worth the money. I cannot comment on the longevity of it though, because as we always say on this channel, longevity is the hardest thing to review for because it takes years to see how far a reel degrades. But in the handful of weeks I've had it, I've had zero issues with that. So let me know what you guys think of this reel, and I'll see you guys next time on the water.